Okay, so we will now start with the so-called Module 3, Unit 2 in our school, and this now refers to what we call as negotiation. Negotiation is what we call now as the transfer of the instrument from one person to another in order to constitute the transferee, the holder of that instrument. So negotiation is the transfer of that instrument. It is the conveyance of that instrument from one person to another, from the endorser to another person known now as the endorsee of the same. How are you going to transfer that instrument? Well, there are several ways by which that instrument can be transferred. First is what we call now as assignment. Another one is by operation of law. And then another one would be by negotiation. So what is this assignment all about? Assignment is the transfer of the instrument without the necessity of negotiating the same. So take, for example, a payable to order instrument. The proper way on how to negotiate it would be through endorsement completed by delivery. But if that payable to order instrument, instead of transferring it to another by way of endorsement completed by delivery, you will just deliver that payable to order instrument, then your act of delivering that instrument without the requisite endorsement will now just be considered as a mere assignment. So transfer by operation of law, on the other hand, is just delivery because it has been so allowed under the law. And then how about negotiation? Negotiation now, well, there are two ways by which you could negotiate that. Take note from the very definition of negotiation. Sabi niya doon, transfer of that instrument in order to constitute the transferee, the holder of that instrument. Okay? To constitute the transferee, the holder of the instrument. Unlike in assignment, the assignor will just transfer that instrument to another, and that the person to whom you have given that instrument will just be known as a mere assignee. But in negotiation, the transferee of that instrument will not be known as a mere assignee. Rather, he would be known as a holder of that instrument. And when we say holder, well, you know for a fact that you have your holder in due course, your holder not in due course, a holder for value. Ganon. So kapag sinabi natin na negotiation, you will transfer the instrument purposely to make the transferee as a holder of that instrument. And there are two ways by which you could negotiate your instrument. First is by delivery alone, and then the other one is through endorsement completed by delivery. Delivery alone, this is applicable if the instrument is a payable to bearer instrument, so your section 9. And then endorsement completed by delivery, this is applicable if the instrument is a payable to order instrument. So now I want you to know the distinction between assignment and negotiation. How will you now distinguish assignment from negotiation? In assignment, okay? So in assignment, the assignor, so assignment muna tayo. So in assignment, the assignor will deliver the instrument to a person known as the assignee. So you have to take note that in assignment, whatever the assignor's right has in the instrument, the same kind of title will also be given to the assignee. So anong ibig kong sabihin nun? It means that if the assignor has a defective title, so if the assignor has a defective title, then the assignee gets a defective title. If the assignor has a good title, so good title, then the assignee will now acquire also a good title. In other words, you are just reflecting the kind of title that you have in your instrument. So if you're going to relate this one with your other law subjects, such as the law on sales, this is what we call now as the mirror principle, isn't it? So whatever kind of title that you have, that's the kind of title that you will also be transferring to the vendee. Okay? So if you have a good title, you will transfer good title. If you have a defective title, then you will be transferring a defective title also. So mirror principle. And that is also in line with that principle, nemo dat could non habet. you cannot transfer a better title than what you have. So parang ganun yung concept natin when it comes to assignment. So kung good title ka, good title din ibibigay mo. Kung defective title ka, defective din title din ang tatanggapin niya sa'yo. But how about when it comes now uh, to a negotiation? Okay? Kapag negotiation yan, ano ang mangyayari doon? Are you still reflecting the kind of title that you have? Will you be transferring also the same kind of title, same nature of title to your holder, to your transferee? Well, let us see. So in negotiation, as long as you complied with the same, halimbawa, payable to bearer yan, then the proper way on how to negotiate it would be by way of delivery alone. Whereas, if it is a payable to order instrument, then the proper way on how to negotiate it would be endorsement completed by delivery. So, ganon. Now, if that will be the case, take for example, the endorser. Okay, so yung nag-transfer. If the endorser has a defective title, what kind of title will be given to the endorsee? Would it also be defective title or would it be a good title? In this particular situation, if the endorser has a defective title, do not immediately conclude that the title that will be transferred to the endorsee would also be defective title. Why is that? Because in this situation, that endorsee will be evaluated independently from the kind of title that the endorser has. What do I mean with that? It means that before you can conclude what kind of title will be granted or will be transferred by the endorsee, by the endorser to the endorsee, you have to note whether or not your endorsee is a holder in due course or a holder not in due course. So anong ibig sabihin nun? If your endorsee is a holder in due course, if is a holder in due course, habaan natin para if the endorsee is a holder in due course, then the endorsee acquires good title. If the endorsee is a holder not in due course, then that's the time that he will acquire a defective title. So, ang point natin dito, the title of the endorsee does not depend on the kind of title that the endorser has in the instrument. So how about if the endorser has a good title? Does it automatically mean that our endorsee will also acquire a good title? Well, again, just like what we have earlier said, if the endorsee is a holder in due course, then he will be acquiring good title. But in the event that the endorsee is a holder not in due course, in which case that endorsee will also be acquiring a defective title. So, yung kind of title ni endorsee does not depend upon the kind of title that the endorser has in the instrument. Unlike in assignment, that if the assignor has a defective title, automatic yan. Assignee, defective title din. Assignor has good title, automatic yan. Assignee will also have a good title. Kasi nga, i-apply natin dyan yung general rule natin na mirror principle, that you cannot transfer a better title than what you have. So, if you have good title will be transferred. Defective title, then you will be transferring a defective title. But, when it comes to negotiation, that will no longer be the rule because the endorsee's title does not depend upon the kind of title that our endorser is actually giving. Rather, it depends on that endorsee whether it's a holder in due course or a holder not in due course. If a holder in due course, good title. If it's a holder not in due course, then he will acquire a defective title. So, pagdating sa negotiation, kung i-apply ulit natin yung natutunan natin sa contract of sale, applicable ngayon yan, yung exception doon sa rule na nemo that could non habet. Tulad ng such as when you are now dealing with a property covered by the torrent system and that you are a buyer for value and in good faith. In which case, even if the seller has a defective title, the vendina of that property covered under the torrent system, if it's a buyer for value and in good faith, then he will now have a better title than the title of the vendor. So, ganun. In effect, kung i-apply natin yung mga principles ng contract of sale dito, sa assignment, yung general rule, nemo that could non habet. Kapag sinabi natin yung negotiation, we will now be applying the exception on that rule nemo dat could non habet. Buyer for value and in good faith of a titled property or a property covered under the torrent system. Okay, so let's go back to this slide. What constitutes then negotiation? Well, under Section 30, yung sinabi natin, negotiation simply refers to the transfer of that instrument in order to make your transferee as the holder thereof. So holder, ibig sabihin, he would be made either as a holder in due course or a holder not in due course. Okay? Now, question. Is issuance of an instrument by the maker to the payee considered negotiation? Maalala niyo yung first na incident sa life ng negotiable instrument? The first one is issuance. Now, is the delivery of the instrument from the maker to the payee, if it's a promissory note, from the drawer to the payee in a bill of exchange, would that be considered negotiation? What do you think? Well, there are two views on the matter. First view, the delivery the delivery of the instrument from the maker to the payee would not be considered negotiation. Rather, it will be considered as issuance. Okay? Hindi yan delivery. It is issue. Okay? It's the delivery. Okay? And not negotiation. Next, the second view would be it will now be considered as negotiation. Why? Because Section 30 negotiation refers to the delivery to the payee or to an endorsee. Okay? Pero ano ang sinusunod natin ay usually use of the first view that the delivery of the instrument from the maker to the payee, from the drawer to the payee, should not be considered as negotiation because that is what we call as issuance of the instrument. The first transfer of the instrument, complete in form and substance, from your maker to the payee or from your drawer to the payee. Okay. Now, how about the second situation? If your payee now will present that instrument or the check to the drawee bank, is there considered negotiation? What do you think? Is that negotiation? Limbawa, you are the payee of the instrument. Holder ka ngayon yan. Now, pupunta ka ngayon doon sa drawee bank in order to encash it. With your act of presenting your check with the drawee bank, will that be tantamount to what we call now as negotiation? The answer would be no. Why? Because in that situation, our pay is just making a presentation, making a demand on the part of the drawee, and the drawee, after that demand has been received, is now expected to receive or to deliver the payment to the payee. So that is not negotiation because you are not making the bank as the holder of the instrument. Rather, you are now enforcing or claiming payment from the bank being the drawee of that particular instrument. Okay? So, how will you make the endorsement? So, negotiation na tayo ngayon. Ha? We are now in negotiation. And there are two ways by which an instrument may be negotiated. First is by delivery alone, and the other one is endorsement completed by delivery. Okay? So, delivery alone, before we'll consider this one, delivery alone, that is applicable in a situation whereby your instrument is a payable to bearer instrument. So when your instrument is a bearer instrument, all you have to do if you want to negotiate it is to deliver it to another person. You need not do anything. Iabot mo lang, ibigay mo lang, and that's it. There has been proper negotiation of that payable to bearer instrument because being a bearer instrument, it can be negotiated by delivery only. Now, how about if it is a payable to order instrument? Then if it's a payable to order instrument, the proper way or the correct way on how to negotiate it would be through endorsement completed by delivery. Hindi lang delivery na, meron na siyang tinatawag na endorsement. And this endorsement now precedes the delivery. Bago mo ibigay, dapat i-endorse mo muna. If you just delivered that payable to order instrument without the requisite endorsement, what will happen? That is not negotiation. Rather, that will now be considered as an assignment. Siguro nag-iisip kayo, you are entertaining questions in your thoughts right now. Sir, yun po bang payable to bearer instrument na sinabi mo kanina na it can be negotiated only by way of delivery? Is it possible that a payable to bearer instrument will be negotiated also through endorsement completed by delivery. Okay? So ulitin ko payable to bearer, dapat i-negotiate through delivery only. But is it possible that a payable to bearer instrument will now be negotiated to a third person or to your to a transferee, okay? By way of endorsement completed by delivery, kagaya ng order instrument? What do you think? The answer here is yes. A payable to bearer instrument can be negotiated also through endorsement completed by delivery. However, if you will negotiate a payable to bearer instrument through endorsement completed by delivery, your liability will be far greater as compared to that situation whereby you will just negotiate that payable to bearer instrument by way of delivery. Ano bang ibig kong sabihin doon? Okay, let's see this one. Diba ang sabi ko, kapag payable to bearer, dapat delivery lang. So, delivery alone. If it is payable to order, that's the time that you will now make endorsement completed by delivery. So, ganon. So, ang tanong ngayon is, question, if the instrument is payable to bearer, is it possible to negotiate it through endorsement? So, endorsement completed by delivery? Pwede ba? If it's the instruments payable to bearer, is it possible to negotiate it through endorsement completed by delivery? Anong sabi ko? Yes, pwede. Kaya lang, you will now increase the extent of your liability. Why? Okay, why? Kasi, if you will negotiate the instrument by delivery, the rule is that you will only be liable to your immediate transferee. Take note, immediate transferee. The word immediate here is being used in its literal meaning as the transferee is the person to whom you have delivered that instrument. We are not referring to privity or relationship of the parties. When I made use of the word immediate, I am referring to proximity or distance. So, ganito. Maker issued a promissory note, okay? Payable, so si maker, si M, payable to P or bearer. So, there is no question. It is a payable to bearer instrument kasi it is payable to a specific person or bearer. Now, what did P do? The bearer of the instrument. Ang ginawa niya, P delivered the instrument to A. So, the mode of transfer was only delivery by P to A. So, in that particular situation, question, to whom is P liable? Kapag ganyan, then P is liable only to A. Why? Because A is his immediate transferee. Siya lang kasi yung pinag-abutan niya. Now, how about if A now will negotiate the instrument? So A negotiates the instrument to B through special endorsement. So A to B through special endorsement. Then in that situation, to whom is A liable? To whom is A liable? Then in that case, sabi ko nga, if it's a payable to bearer instrument, pwedeng endorsement completed by delivery, pero your liability will be far greater as compared to that situation whereby you will just deliver the instrument only. Bakit? Because in this situation, considering that A negotiated that instrument to be okay, special endorsement completed by delivery, then A is liable not only to B, but to all individuals, okay, to all transferees who will now derive their title from his special endorsement. So, anong ibig kong sabihin doon? Kung si A to B is special endorsement, then ganito na lang. A to B is through special endorsement. So A specially endorsed that to B. O, ganyan na lang para makita ninyo. And then B, again, specially endorsed that to C. And then C specially endorsed that, again, to D. Then in that situation, kanino ngayon liable si A? Yung unang special endorser. Sabi natin, A is liable not only to B, but all individuals who will now derive their title from the special endorsement. It means that as long as there is still a person who is negotiating that instrument through endorsement completed by delivery, then A would still be liable to that person. So following that rule, then in that situation, A is not only liable to B, but he could also be held liable by C, he could also be held liable by D, because all of them derive their title from the special endorsement that has been made by A to B. So kailan po ba titigil yung liability ni A kapag ganyan? Well, the liability of A would stop only when another person will now negotiate the instrument by delivery. So, if D now negotiates the instrument by delivery to E, okay, so dineliver na niya yan kay E, then that's the time that the liability of A will stop. Why? Because in this case, A is no longer liable to E. Sino ngayon ang liable kay E? It should now be D. Bakit si D ang liable lang kay E? Because this is a bearer instrument and it has been negotiated by way of delivery. As a rule, the the transferor of E will be the one liable to him. Sino ba yung transferor ni E? Si D lang. Okay? You are liable to your immediate transferee. So D is the only person liable to E. A is no longer liable to E. So saan ang extent ng liability ni A? It stops with D. He is liable, however, to B, to C, and then finally to D. Not to E. Bakit? Kasi ang liable kay E would be this person, Mr. D, because he transferred it to E by way of delivery. Okay? Sige. Okay. So, endorsement. How will you make the endorsement? Ano yung mga principles na dapat tandaan pagdating sa endorsement? First, endorsement must be written in the instrument itself. Sir, saan pong part ng instrument? Harap po ba o likod? Sabi dito, it shall be placed at the dorsal portion of the instrument. And when we say dorsal, we're actually referring to the back of the instrument. But notwithstanding the same, even if the law states that the endorsement shall be placed at the dorsal portion of the instrument, is it possible that the endorsement will likewise be made in front or on the front page of that instrument or on the face of your instrument? Pwede ba? Well, remember what I have mentioned to you before, that if there is a signature appearing on the face of the instrument and the owner of that signature is not the maker, he is not the drawer, or he is not the acceptor of that instrument, then he is presumed to be an endorser. Ang tawag nga natin doon is anomalous or irregular endorser. So, ibig sabihin, is it possible that you will now place your endorsement also in front or on the face of your instrument? Pwedeng pwede. But ang basic na rule natin, ang general rule natin is that the endorsement should be placed at the dorsal portion, doon sa likod, hindi sa harap. Kasi kapag nilagay mo sa harap, pwede ka nilang tawagin na anomalous or irregular endorser. Ngayon, how about if the dorsal portion of that instrument is already filled up with numerous endorsements? So, ang dami-dami ng transfers na nangyari. Ang dami-dami ng pirma doon sa likod ng instrument. Wala nang paglalagyan pa yung pirma mo. Is it possible to place your endorsement on a separate paper? The answer would be yes. You can likewise place your endorsement in what we call now as an allonce. What is an allonce? Allonce refers to a piece of paper that has been securely attached in the instrument. So if that piece of paper, it has been attached in the instrument itself, and in that piece of paper, you will place your endorsement, then there is likewise proper endorsement. Ano pa yung dapat natandaan na principle pagdating sa endorsement, besides the fact that it should be placed at the back or in a piece of paper that's been securely attached in the instrument? That it is not necessary that you will be placing additional words. The signature of the endorser alone will suffice. Hindi mo na kailangan pa magsulat dyan ng pay to, etc., etc. Okay? Mere signature of the endorser alone is enough to prove that there has been endorsement. That's what we call now a blank endorsement. So signature of the endorser alone without any additional word is a proper endorsement. That is a blank endorsement. What else? That if you endorse the instrument, you have to endorse the entire value of that instrument. Take, for example, you receive a promissory note, you are the payee of a promissory note worth 1 million pesos. If ever you will negotiate that instrument to another, you will endorse it, you have to endorse that entire 1 million. Hindi ka allowed na maggawa ng tinatawag natin na partial endorsement. Except only if the instrument has been partially paid, in which case you will now endorse it insofar as the remainder is concerned. So take for example this one. So promissory note, halimbawa, nakasulat doon sa promissory note na yon. So I promise to pay to P or order 1 million and thereafter signed by M. Now, at the back of the instrument, this is what happened. Pay to A, signed P. Okay, si P, ito, yung payee natin. Was there proper endorsement? Obviously, may proper endorsement. Bakit? It has been in writing, it's placed at the back of the instrument, it has been signed, and it is an endorsement of the entire instrument. Okay, endorsement of the entire instrument. So yung buong 1 million, yun ang naibigay kay A. Did you notice something in our example about this endorsement? Napansin ninyo? Wala nang 1 million. Wala na yung word na order. But notwithstanding the same, I am telling you that this instrument is still a negotiable instrument. Bakit? Because for purposes of identifying whether your instrument is negotiable or non-negotiable, limit your analysis on what is written on the face of the instrument. Because whatever will happen to your instrument after its issuance, it will no longer affect its negotiable character. So an instrument negotiable in origin continues to be negotiable until restrictively endorsed or discharged by payment or otherwise. Section 47 of the Negotiable Instruments Law. Anyway, we'll go to that later on. But I know that some of you are entertaining that question. Bakit niya sinasabing negotiable? Wala na yung order. Wala naman yung 1 million. Kasi nga, once na naibigay mo yung instrument, as long as that instrument is negotiable from the very beginning, that negotiable character of that instrument will continue until it is discharged. So, dito, ang presumption, there has been negotiation of the entire 1 million. But how about if this what happened? At the back of the instrument, pay to A for 500,000. Is that possible? General rule, sabi natin, no. Because if you endorse the instrument, it should be an endorsement of the entire instrument. Dito, face value of the instrument is 1 million. But how much did you actually negotiate to A? It's only for 500,000. Unless this instrument was already partially paid. Halimbawa, yung 500,000 earlier, it was already paid by M. Hindi nga lang niya makancel yung promissory note because the promissory note is for the entire amount of 1 million. So if that will be the case, there has been partial payment of 500,000, then insofar as the remaining amount of 500,000, that's the time that you can now make partial endorsement insofar as the remainder or the unpaid portion is concerned. But if this 1 million, wala namang partial payment, buong-buo pa rin yung 1 million, basta sinabi lang ni P, dahil 500 lang yung utang, 500,000 lang yung utang ko kay A, 500,000 din lang ang ibibigay ko sa kanya. That will be improper endorsement. This is not allowed. This is wrong. Now, how about if P is aware of that? Kasi nag-aral din siya ng negotiable instruments. So alam niya na bawal yung partial negotiation. Bawal yung partial endorsement. So, ano ang ginawa niya ngayon? Pay to A for 500,000 and then pay to B for the remaining amount of 500,000. Signed pinirmahan pa niya pa rin, signed P. In that particular case, was there already proper endorsement? Because 500,000 was earlier given to A, another 500,000 was likewise given in favor of B. So it is now an endorsement of the entire amount of 1 million. Okay? Having been made by the same payee, Mr. P. So question, is that already proper endorsement? Tama na ba? Kasi na-endorse na yung buong amount? Well, while it is true that in that case, there has been endorsement of the entire instrument, of the entire amount appearing on the face of that promissory note, still, that endorsement is not a proper endorsement. Why? Because if you will endorse, you have to endorse it only to either one person or to two or more persons having the same interest. So, dito, sabi mo kay A 500,000, sabi mo kay B 500,000. Just make use of your imagination. Iisang promissory note. Ano ang ibibigay kong promissory note kay A? Ano ang promissory note na ibibigay ko kay B? Dahil ba 1 million yung promissory note, 500,000 ang pupunta kay A, 500,000 yung pupunta kay B. Punitin ko na lang sa gitna, yung one half ibigay ko kay A, yung one half bibigay ko kay B. No. That's the reason why in this particular scenario, that endorsement is not yet allowed. Okay? Pero halimbawa, ganito ang ginawa mo na. Pay to A and B, sign P. Would that be proper endorsement now? The answer would be yes. Valid na yung ganyan na endorsement. Pero halimbawa ang ginawa mo, pay to A or B, mali po yan. That is not allowed. Dapat N. Dito sa case na ito, okay, as of this, at this juncture, kung maalala ninyo, yung order instrument nyo noon, Section 8, endorsements made to one, some, or more of the payees. Okay. That is what we call a payable to order instrument. Ano ibig sabihin? I promise to pay to P, R, S, and U, or order. Pwede. Valid yan. I promise to pay to P, R, S, or U, or order. 1 million. Valid pa rin yan. Pero, pagdating dito sa endorsement mo, dapat yung conjunction mo, ganyan. Hindi pwedeng i-negotiate yung instrument sa iba't ibang tao having different interest. Unlike dito, kapag payable to order, dapat yung payee mo pwedeng gamitan ng conjunction na and, pwede rin yung conjunction na or. Okay? So, let's go back to our slide again. Endorsement by rubber stamp. Pwede ba yan? Endorsement by rubber stamp? Tinatamad kang magsulat ng pay to, ganon. So, ano ginawa mo? Kinuha mo yung rubber stamp, tatak ka na lang. Will that be allowed? Well, that is allowed under the law because it's not prohibited. Remember yung principle sa interpretation that if the law does not include, it excludes. Di ba? Parang ganon sana. However, dito, if the law is silent, ibig sabihin, it is not prohibited. So, if the law did not prohibit endorsement by rubber stamp, it is actually allowing endorsement by rubber stamp. Let's now proceed with the different kinds of endorsements. What are the different kinds of endorsements that we're going to consider here? First, you have your special endorsement. Next, you have your blank endorsement. Another one, you have also your restrictive endorsement. And then you have your qualified endorsement, conditional endorsement. So, yan yung mga andun sa negotiable instruments. And then we'll still add one more. Yung tinatawag natin ngayon na facultative endorsement. In our discussion about kinds of endorsements, we will only be limiting our discussion on what we call as the principal classifications of endorsements. Hindi na natin pag-uusapan yung mga other classifications or subclassifications of endorsements. Our discussion will be limited only on these principal classifications. So you have your special endorsement. What is a special endorsement? Special endorsement is a kind of endorsement which specifies the name of your endorsee. Specifies the name of the endorsee. May tao na nakapangalan dito. So special endorsement specifies the person to whom or to whose order the instrument is payable. So on the front portion, on the face of the instrument, this is what you this is what is found. I promise to pay San or order 1 million pesos signed Mike. Now, at the back of the instrument, ganito naman ang nakasulat ngayon. Okay? So, pay to Yang, signed Senon. Okay? Tapos, yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina, that if you notice, wala na yung word na order, wala na yung word of negotiability dito sa endorsement natin, wala na rin yung amount. But notwithstanding the same, the instrument would still be a negotiable instrument. Why is that? Because for purposes of determining whether your instrument is negotiable or non-negotiable, limit your analysis on what is found in the front portion. So as long as the instrument is negotiable at the very start, the negotiable character will continue until it is restrictively endorsed or discharged by payment or otherwise. It's Section 47 na sinabi natin kanina. Okay? Now, how about endorsement in blank? If a special endorsement, the name of the endorsee is specified, the endorsee has been clearly indicated in the instrument. In a blank endorsement, only the signature of the endorser is present. No additional word. So, front portion, I promise to pay Senon or order 1 million, sign Mike. And then at the back portion, where you have indicated your endorsement, Senon here, our payee, did not make use of additional word. Wala na yung nakasulat dito na pay to. Wala na. It's just his signature alone without any additional word. In which case, this is now what we call a blank endorsement. And I hope you can still remember the effect of a blank endorsement in a payable to order instrument. Take note, this is a payable to order instrument. Considering that the only endorsement is a blank endorsement, what will happen to this payable to order instrument? Section 9, paragraph E says there that this instrument now will be converted into a bearer instrument because the only endorsement is a blank endorsement. Okay? So ngayon, ang tanong, is it possible to convert this blank endorsement here into a special endorsement? If so, how? If your answer is yes, how are you going to convert it? Let's take a look at this one. Is it possible to convert a blank endorsement into a special endorsement? The answer would be yes. But how are you going to convert that? Sabi dito, by writing above that signature in blank a contract which is consistent with the character of your instrument. By writing a contract above that signature in blank. So take a look at this illustration. I promise to pay Sanon or order 1 million pesos. Yan. Yan pala. I promise to pay Sanon or order 1 million pesos, sign Mike. Now, at the back of the instrument, ito lang dati nakasulat. Sign Sanon lang. So, how will you convert? Mali. How will you convert a blank endorsement into a special endorsement? So, ito lang na lang yung illustration ng endorsement pala. So, sign Sanon, signature in blank. Ano ang gagawin mo to convert this blank endorsement into a special endorsement? By writing above this blank signature of Xenon, a contract which is consistent with its character, consistent with the character of the instrument. So ano lang ang gagawin ko? Maglalagay lang ako dyan, pay to Yang. And after writing the words pay to Yang, what happened to my blank endorsement? That is no longer a blank endorsement. This has already been converted into a special endorsement. So if you would be asked, is it possible to convert a blank endorsement into special endorsement without changing anything on its face? There is only one answer for that. The answer is yes. By writing above that signature in blank a contract which is consistent with its character, okay, which is consistent with the nature of that instrument, such as in our illustration by writing the word pay to Yen. What is this third kind of endorsement? Take note, this is what we call as conditional endorsement. I want you to remember that this endorsement is, that in this endorsement, the instrument is not conditional. What is conditional here is the endorsement itself. So if you're going to notice, in the face of our instrument, it says here, I promise to pay Shannon or order 1 million pesos, signed Mike. Okay, so I promise to pay Shannon or order 1 million, signed Mike. Meron bang condition dyan? Is there an event which may or may not happen? None. Because that is considered as payable on demand. No time for payment is expressed. But how about if at the back of the instrument, ganito ngayon ang nakasulat? Pay to Yang if she will pass the CPA board, signed Shannon. Di ba kapag wala tong if he will pass the CPA board, wala yung phrase na yan. Pay to Yang lang, period. Signed Shannon. Anong tawag natin sa endorsement na ganon? Tawag natin doon is special endorsement. Now, nagdagdag tayo ngayon ng phrase, if she will pass the CPA board. The inclusion of this phrase now means that this endorsement is subject to an event which may or may not happen. It is now subject to a condition. Sir, when that endorsement is subject to a condition, did it not at all affect the validity or the negotiable character of the instrument? The answer is no. Again, Section 47. If your instrument is negotiable from the very beginning, that negotiable character would continue until it is restrictively endorsed or discharged by payment or otherwise. So, the fact that this endorsement now bears or contains a conditional endorsement, it remains to be a negotiable instrument because in its beginning, it is already a negotiable instrument. So what if you will be receiving a conditional endorsement? What will be the effect of that? Okay? Ano yung effect ng conditional endorsement? Well, in that particular case, if you are Shannon, yung endorser, conditional endorser, you have two options. First, it's to wait for Yang to fulfill the condition. You wait until such time that she will pass the CPA board. If she has already passed the CPA board, then that's the time that you will deliver to her the 1 million. Or another scenario would be, instead of waiting for the arrival or for the happening of that condition, pwede mong gawin is, hindi mo na lang hintayin na mangyari yung condition. Rather, you will deliver right away the 1 million without even waiting for the fulfillment of that condition, without even waiting for Yang to pay or to pass the CPA board. And in that scenario, if you delivered that amount of 1 million to Yang without the fulfillment of that condition, Yang will not yet be the absolute owner of that 1 million. Rather, she will just hold it in trust for Shannon. So anong ibig sabihin nun? If she will just hold it in trust for Shannon, if she will not pass the CPA board, if there is no fulfillment of that condition, Yang is obliged to return that 1 million to Shannon. However, if Yang eventually passed the CPA board, then that's the time that Yang will now have absolute ownership of that 1 million. Bakit ganon? Ha? Bakit kapag nagkakaroon lang siya ng absolute ownership from the moment there will be fulfillment of that condition? Remember, this condition is what we call a suspensive condition, obligations and contracts. That upon the happening of that condition, that suspensive condition, the obligation to deliver should have been created. And the effect of the fulfillment of the suspensive condition retroacts on the date when that obligation was created. So kung tanggap na yan ni Yang yung pera before the happening of that condition, before she actually passed the CPA board, that's the time that she is now the absolute owner of that property. But her absolute ownership will not really commence on the date when she actually passed the CPA board. Rather, the effect of that will retroact on the date when this endorsement was actually made by Shannon in favor of Yang. Sir, yung first na situation mo kanina, yung sinabi mo na if Yang will not pass the CPA board, considering that Yang is just holding it as a mere trustee, ano ngayon ang pwedeng gawin? Sabi natin kanina, Yang is now duty bound to return that to Shannon. But how about if for one reason or another, Yang did not or refused to return it? She refused to return the same. Can Shannon now file a complaint against Yang for the recovery of the 1 million? Obviously, the answer is yes, because otherwise, there will now be a case of unjust enrichment. So ano kayo nang gagamitin ko, sir? Para makolek yan. Okay? Is that covered by quasi-contract solution indemnity? Remember, in solution indemnity, there is what we call as a delivery by mistake. So, is there delivery by mistake here? Hindi naman delivery by mistake eh. Kasi alam ni Sano na hindi pa siya pumapasa, but despite such, he delivered that to Yang. So, can he make use of solution indemnity if Yang will later on refuse to return the 1 million because the condition did not happen? What do you think? Or what we call as action in reverso. Maalala niyo yun? Action in reverso. Or an action to recover what has been unjustly delivered. So, mas applicable siya, yung action in reverso as compared to solution indemnity. Kasi nga, solution indemnity, there has been delivered by mistake. Eh. Pero dun sa action in reverso, it does not matter whether there has been delivered by mistake or not. Okay? So that's what we call now as our conditional endorsement. Restrictive endorsement, putulin ko na lang muna dito. Tutuloy natin yung recording and then mag-upload tayo. Ay may pupunta.